Xyz summoning was the new type of summoning for the Zexal era, also known as the Zale era, and it was something we could all get behind. Just take monsters that have the same level as each other, stack them on top of one another, and bada bing, you have yourself a new monster whose rank equals the level that all those monsters had in common. Sometimes there were restrictions on what kind of monsters you could use for Xyz summoning, but it was straightforward enough. Honestly, the hardest thing to understand about them was how to say the name Xyz. It's spelled XYZ, but they're not the robot dragon cannons we got during the Duel Monsters era, since those are XYZ all capitalized, while these cards only capitalize the X like it's a proper noun. And you sound out Xyz rather than saying each letter like the alphabet robots, which Konami was clear about in their first press release about Xyz monsters. Names aside, with all unique summoning methods in Yugioh comes some weird and experimental monsters. As we did with Fusion, Ritual, and Synchro, we're going to find the weirdest monsters that Xyz summoning brought to us. And weird can mean a lot of things to us. It can be their effects, names, summoning conditions, anime appearances, or simply how they look. We always love a good artwork riff here. And joining me are my co-hosts NegetiveX.
Man, just when I learned how to synchro summon, now I gotta deal with this?
And Judgment Meter.
It's me! Let's see some Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Now, let's overlay the top 10 weirdest Yu-Gi-Oh! Xyz monsters. Number 10, Gem Knight Pearl and Gigo the Risen. So one of the big appeals of Xyz monsters is they all have effects based on how many monsters you use to summon them. The cards that you stack, called overlay units, are essentially ammunition for how many shots you have to use those effects. However, two Xyz monsters exist just to give us a strong body and nothing more. Gem Knight Pearl and Gigo the Risen. While the beat stick option is always something on the table for Yu-Gi-Oh, with all the good effects that you'd be passing up with other generic Xyz monsters just for a few hundred more attack points, it's hard to justify using these guys. It just feels like a waste not being able to remove the overlay units to activate any effects. The saving grace is the two monsters that Konami chose to be examples of effectless Xyz monsters makes sense when you look at the monster's histories. Gem Knight Pearl comes from an archetype that is based around some normal monsters, so it makes sense that its Xyz boss imitates the high attack, effectless beatdown of Garnet and friends. That being said, a big part of the Gem Knights is fusing to create boss monsters with effects, so at the same time, I don't see why their Xyz monster doesn't follow that pattern.
That's a fancy card. It's shiny, got a bunch of pearls, an odd number, 7. I don't know, I think I'd be happier if there was an even number of pearls, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not angry at this guy. I'm not happy with this guy either, but I'm not angry. What they should have done is it only has 2600 attack when you sacrifice one of the cards underneath it. That would have made it even worse, but you know.
Meh, they already did that with Leviathan Dragon as the tutorial boss Xyz monster in the anime, but he got to be on a box cover and be the grandiose introductions to numbers in the anime. No such grandeur for the Gem Knights. At least Pearl carries himself well.
Look at his shoes, they're really cool.
For the other effectless Xyz monster, it makes more sense. Gigo is a series of monsters that tells the story of a lizard man going about his life, from little buddy of the water charmer, to the lone wolf vigilante, to a monster who has upgraded his form so much that he lost his humanity, or reptile manatee.
Oh my god, he is adorable. You see, the mistake they made is as he got more powerful, they made him look more like a human. They needed to lean more into the reptileness. Look how big his lower jaw is. He's probably got an underbite. Poor little guy. Don't you just want to help feed him? I hope no one's threatening my little boy. I'd die for him. I'd die for his pointy knees.
And now you can die for him. I attack your Gigabyte with my Blue Eyes White Dragon. Burst Stream of Destruction.
Oh no! I wasn't expecting this. Well, at least when we do, nothing bad will happen, like getting sent to the Shadow Realm.
Oh, this is the uncensored version. You just get murdered.
Oh man. God, I really needed to find a new hobby.
The point is, he lost his way, and the Xyz version of himself is when he redirects redirects his life in the right way. I went over the massive amount of cards that he's been on to piece together a story on my first Yu-Gi-Oh! Backstory list, so I won't go into everything here, but what you need to know is the Lizard Man's been through a lot. I erroneously speculated that Yugioh the Risen was a newer, more evil form of the Reptile Man in my first backstory video, since he still looked antagonistic at some angles, but it appears I was wrong, and Xyz summoning is what saved him.
Oh no. Oh man, they made him ripped.
But he's always been ripped.
I know, but now he's like sexy ripped. I just can't take my eyes off of him.
Any area in particular?
The chestal area. He has strategic placement of that knee right there.
I'm still not sure why they chose for his final form so far to be an Xyz monster though, since a big part of the Yugioh storyline is the lore you can read at the bottom of the normal monsters to get the next chapter of his life. But since effectless extra deck monsters don't get lore, you just have a big block of nothing down here. So it's a shame we don't get a mini story on how he gets to this point like we did with the previous chapters. But, like the vanilla synchro monsters, thus is the life of the rare effectless Xyz monster. Number 9, Baby Tiragon. Baby Tiragon's effect allows it to detach one material, and you can target one level 1 monster that you control, allowing it to attack your opponent directly. Tiragon's effect specifically says level, so it cannot target itself in a pinch, or any other Xyz monsters for that matter, so you don't have the best options for this effect. The big thing about Xyz monsters is they do not have levels like every other type of monster at the time. They were known as ranks, so any card that mentioned monsters with levels did not affect Xyz monsters. The weird thing I always found about this card is they didn't use it as an example to say level/rank to be aware of this limitation to make Baby Tiragon slightly better. It just made it harder to use otherwise. And not only that, but you had to use 3 level 1 monsters to summon it, so you found a way to get 3 level 1s on the field, use them to summon this monster, and then need to somehow find a way to get even more level 1s on the field just so you can use its effect. It's one of those situations where on paper, this appears to be a support card with some basic niche effects, but the payoff seems like it will never be worth it unless you have a wealth of ego boosts in your hand. I do say seems useless, since Skull Servant decks actually could make use out of it with how beefy their level 1 king could get, so there you go. But there's another major reason this card was weird to me, and it's not the baby's fault. Let's talk about its appearance. No, there's nothing unusual about it, at least in Japanese. It has that cute plushie design that it's going for, and I feel bad for it since it looks so sad. I'm sorry for everything I said about your effect. Do you need us to compliment you instead?
Baby. He's sad. I want to give him a hug.
And it looks so grumpy too. I love it.
His head's really big.
I'm gonna say it's a good thing this thing has such big ears, because I don't think it can hear anything with all that hair in there.
As its name implies, it's a tiger and a dragon combined into baby form. So if that's the case, and here's the weird part, why in the international releases did they remove the horns? Konami used to remove horns on demons in international releases due to religious connotations to the devil, which they've started to undo recently. However, Tiragon's horns are not demonic. Why do that to him? In Japanese and English, its name was always a combo of tiger and dragon, so it was part dragon from the start, meaning those are dragon horns. Dragons don't get their horns removed ever. Why did they confuse these for demonic horns? Maybe that's why Baby Tiragon looks so sad. He knew he would be getting his horns removed due to a misunderstanding. Number 8, Coach King Giant Trainer. This one is weird because of something in its effect, and it's just in the wording. You can detach one Xyz material from this card to draw one card, and if it was a monster, inflict 800 points of damage to your opponent. Fine effect. Extra cards are good, but its restriction is that it's only usable thrice per turn. They said thrice to tell us 3 times per turn. That was a term never used on a card before. My first instinct says to criticize that they didn't just say up to 3 times per turn to avoid that awkward wording, but I guess they do have to be consistent with when they say 1 once per turn and twice per turn. I know thrice is a legitimate term, but I've only ever heard it in a joking context, like when someone is trying to find a funny way to say 3 of, never seriously. But I guess we know what it means, and Yu-Gi-Oh has taught me how to use thrice in a real sentence, so I won't go too hard on it. And it gave Giant Trainer the distinction of being the only card with thrice in its effect, until Mari joined it, but at least Giant Trainer was the first. Plus, with all those weapons, he deserves to have an effect that can activate thrice.
Oh, he has a baseball bat. He gets to be added to the baseball bat list.
He's got more than just baseball tools. He appears to be a coach of multiple unspecified sports.
Oh, he's a coach. I get it now. Because he's got knee pads and a chest protector. You can tell I play sports.
Oh, let me just go out. What do I need? Oh, I don't know. How about my 2-foot-long knee pads? These will keep me safe. Does he only coach giants? Or is he himself giant?
He's just giant.
Oh, well, that's less cool. I thought it was the world's most restrictive coach.
Yeah, that was a quirk of the coach series of cards. They were really cool, but they had the naming convention of coach followed by what they are and a general descriptor, like wolf bark.
His ancestors did nothing to contribute to society. He was just a wolf, barking all the time, and that's the name. So eventually he became a coach and a soldier.
Number 7, Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe. Hope I pronounced all that correctly. The railway archetype was always one of the coolest to me, since they took a bunch of trains and turned them into tools of destruction. Dakoichi walked so they could run. The archetype itself is weird in how well they all work for being a bunch of non-sentient trains. The designs, effects, and ways they can summon one another make everything about Yu-Gi-Oh! Trains pure hype. I love how their boss monsters feel like the ultimate extreme. The 2 rank 10 ones you gotta look out for are Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora and Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max.
Does that mean he's not just Gustav? He's Gustav to the max. Or is his last name just Max? God damn it. They both named it after somebody who works there and added all the extra words.
What did he do for the company?
He refills the water in the water cooler, but he's badass, so he's a Super Dreadnought. Actually, that'd be a very nice thing to get. That'd be a very big honor.
Disclaimer, this is all a joke. Gustav Max is actually named after a real-life railway gun. Gustav Max is my favorite since the monster is like 75% gun and the angle is actively threatening you. But the real Xyz monster to make your opponent go crazy is Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe, because it's a gun made out of guns. It's also a tank. And that's not a joke. It's basically the last 2 mega gun tanks combined into one, which is implied by its effect where you can summon it using a rank 10 Xyz monster, which just so happens to be the rank of the other 2 tanks we just discussed.
We are now going into a war zone.
It's a clever way to show how this tank was built using its summoning conditions. Also, just the name. I feel like I'm saying it wrong if I don't yell it or progressively get louder when saying it. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe. This was the era when I feel boss monster names started to truly go way over the top. The previous era, it was just seeing how many words you could add to Red Dragon Archfiend. Now it's adding the most amount of syllables you can to describe a train gun.
You don't need all these words, guys. Let's dial it back. You're not paid by the letter. Oh my god, do you think the creators are paid by the letter? Someday you're just gonna have a card that, like, the name takes up the entire thing because someone just held down A the entire time just to get that Christmas bonus, you know?
Number 6, number 22, Zombiestein. Zombiestein seems like a pretty standard Xyz monster at first glance. Cool design, good type and attribute, high attack, and a solid effect. Changing the opponent's battle position and negating effects are some of the most handy effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, the worst thing I could criticize about the card itself is that its name is a clear reference to Frankenstein, supported by his Japanese name just translating to Franken, but it appears he's a monster rather than a scientist. Literature jokes aside, he could be a scientist. We don't know what he is like under that stylish scarf.
Like, I understand having monogram clothing. Like having your initials on a sweater or something on a little scarf. That's pretty cool. Why didn't he go with Zombiestein instead of number 22? That's not your full name, bro. Zombiestein. It should just be a Z. Z.Stein.
Well, actually, every numbered Xyz monster has their own number on themselves, so it's not that special, but it was a good design choice to put it on his clothing rather than his skin.
I'm getting a Bleach vibe where they had numbers on everything. Do you remember that?
I never watched Bleach that closely.
I so don't feel like all of them have numbers on them. Oh, maybe it's just the numbers of the espada. They had numbers on them.
Oh damn, Yu-Gi-Oh! Accidentally took a page out of Bleach's book.
Yeah. I know what I'm talking about. Hey, look at his, he has a little covering. He has a little crotch covering.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest here. Zombie Stein does not look like a zombie. Zombie Stein looks like he spends all his time in the gym. He should be called number 22 Gym Rat.
However, petty name complaints and Bleach references aside, the real oddity of Zombie Stein is his manga form. Everything checks out at first. Same stat line, same overlay removal effect, same summoning requirements. However, he has one special restriction in the manga. He can't attack girls.
Out of chivalry or fear?
That's like some Duelist Kingdom logic right there. You know, Shadow of Eyes only affecting male monsters and such. This was only there for a plot point so Zombie Stein wouldn't just destroy a monster right away for the sake of a conflict, but how would you determine when this restriction is active in any old duel otherwise? Sure, it's obvious with some monsters, and they specify against inhuman things like spaceship monsters that the effect is moot, but what about the supernatural amorphous monsters? How about the heavily armored ones? I don't know who Science Soldier is under the mask. And what about all the animals?
Is Venom Cobra a male or a female? Anyone hopping those hemipenes? I don't think so.
Imagine wasting some of your level 8 monsters on this one big monster that could actually be stalled out by the likes of Dancing Elf. Let's just say, it's a good thing this was the only aspect of Zombie Stein that was locked in the realm of the manga. Number 5, number 83, Galaxy Queen.
She's pretty. She could have her own show.
This one is here for her anime appearance, since I found her antagonism to open up a few questions. Numbers in the anime and manga are special cards that essentially possess their user to make them super intense about something, to a point where they're harming others and need to be stopped. The numbers are blank cards that turn into a monster to fit the character's dex and personal desires. So, how did Galaxy Queen come to be? Well, number 83 found Fuya, who was an actor on a TV show called The Robin, a space action-adventure show with a whole crazy cast of heroes. We learn about this show when Yuma's alien buddy Astro watches it late at night, making me wonder what the demographic is of this show if new episodes are on at like midnight. The showrunner is Fuya's mom, who's also the actress for the Galaxy Queen on the show, which ends up being the form that the number takes. That opens up the question, if this is supposed to represent Fuya's innermost thoughts, desires, fears, whatever really, does he think his mom is evil or antagonistic, or is that saying that he trusts his mom the most of all? Or was the number just aware that he plays a deck based around the TV show he stars in, and he needs a copy of the Queen to complete his collection? But if that's the case, why wasn't Galaxy Queen a card already? Literally everything else from his TV show was turned into a card. Did his mom just have a licensing agreement where they can't print her likeness on a trading card? Is this number breaching a contract? Regardless of the reason, Fuya now has a card that looks like his mom. I wonder what her reaction would be when she finds this card. I think this was a good plot line, and I guess what made it so weird to me was Galaxy Queen was the first time I questioned the motives of a number, rather than just seeing the number as a big monster that wanted power or knowledge or something straightforward like that.
I mean, it's not gonna stop being weird. There's an alien that's outside of this main plot.
Number 4, Submersible Carrier Arrow Shark.
Oh no. Oh no. This is ridiculous. Oh. It's twin sharks, but they also have helmets and they're attached by a glider. Oh, I don't know whether to be afraid or to laugh, but I'm leaning towards laugh.
No, it's trying its best. It's actually supposed to... You can laugh.
This is so sad.
Like, how many carrier arrow sharks are there, right? Like, it's not like it's gonna be like, oh god, it's the non-submersible one.
But aren't they gonna get cold? They're not in the water.
Arrow Shark is one of those monsters that just looks ridiculous, and I have a hard time tapping into my suspension of disbelief to think, oh yeah, normal Yu-Gi-Oh! Someone tied 2 sharks to a mini airplane and just lets the sharks control it. Or maybe it's remote controlled by another person. They play this completely straight in the anime too. Shark, the duelist, summons it like it's the most badass form a shark, the sea creature, could have. have? Why have any measly individual shark when you can have 2 sharks in the air?
This is the type of thing I would do in 3rd grade. Want to know what's cooler than 1? 2! You just stick them together and it's twice as dangerous. Those poor sharks. You think the fin they have above their head is for traction around the corners? Because that's what cars do. It's got quite a bit of a car vibe to it.
It also doesn't help its case that it has a weak effect. In the anime, it inflicted 400 points of damage to the opponent for each card in your hand. Fine, average effect. Nothing too crazy, but direct damage is nice. However, that did not cross over to real life. In the TCG, they changed it to inflict 100 points for each of your banished monsters. The probability of having enough banished monsters to make this a worthwhile effect seems unlikely. I understand Konami not wanting to have the damage per monster too high to avoid an unintentional Gren Maju situation where the totals can get much higher than intended, but 100 per monster seems a bit too low, like they were playing it too safe. The original idea of other shark monsters was that they could banish themselves for effects, but as more sharks came out, they kinda just became general water or fish support over the banishing. Those shark cards were still good support for your Water Xyz decks, but not so much in the banishing department, so you're gonna have to find a different banish-heavy deck to make the Arrow Sharks somewhat useful, and most of those banishing decks unbanish anyway, so good luck. Number 3, number 26, Spaceway Octo Bypass. Octo Bypass's effect is kinda nuts. The individual aspects of it are not that unique, but they're funny when combined. Not because it's crazy good or anything, but because it's weird, which makes sense for this list. You can detach one material from Octo Bypass to give your opponent a ride on the giant space octopus. And by that, I mean whichever player's turn it is when this effect is in use, only one monster can attack, and that attack is turned into a direct attack. However, there's a catch. Any monster that attacks directly during the turn this is activated, they are given to the player that was attacked at the end of the damage step, so you can choose to attack directly, but it comes with a cost. It's a weird creature swap effect with no swap. Of course, you could just use the first half of the effect to bait your opponent into making a direct attack when you have something like Drowning Mirror Force or Magical Cylinders up, but assuming you let the full Octo Bypass resolve, it's a cool benefit for the user when your opponent chooses to attack. Though, I don't really see how Octo Bypass's owner could use the effect well if they're the attacker. I like the idea of giving your opponent a useless monster after doing big damage with it, like an Acid Golem with only one material under it, but with 4 other main monster zones at their disposal and all the ways your opponent can clear a monster with extra deck summoning or basic tributes, it feels too niche of an effect to make it useful for the owner. You're basically giving your opponent a bonus item as an apology for attacking them directly, so I'd say stick to using Octo Bypass to just make your opponent decide. Regardless, the effect has always stood out to me, and I'd love to make a gimmick deck around it someday. The monster itself is also just weird on its own.
He's like the galaxy in his tummy. What?
I don't know, it's like another dimension on his underside.
Like a black hole?
But his eyes are pure octopus. Not even counting the rest of them, because I don't know if that's an octopus. Let's count the legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, they passed that test.
Number 2, Cat Shark. Cat Shark is here because it's a cat shark, and don't let me calling it weird make you think that I don't like it. This dude's adorable. It feels like a modern interpretation of a classic Yu-Gi-Oh monster, where they just combined 2 animals and there you go. Here's a new monster.
Oh my god, it's a little anime cat shark. Although its background is straight up trying to give me a seizure, but the rest of it's adorable.
Cat sharks are actually real sharks, so they didn't have to go as literal as they did, but I'm happy they took this route.
It's like, hey, we need a more adorable shark. Make it half a cat. Make it 30% of a cat. Give it a cat face, give it some legs, I don't know, 2 of them, and bam, adorable shark. It's sad though, because sharks are pretty adorable sometimes. You just gotta look at them the right way.
Its fin arms are a bit unsettling to me. I don't know, those seem like they would be creepy seeing them in motion.
Really, it's the worst of both worlds worlds because you can't escape a cat in water, and you can no longer escape the shark on dry land. It's just gonna claw you to death no matter what.
Another funny thing is with this being part cat and part shark, and Zexal having a cat-themed duelist and a shark-themed duelist, can you guess where this was used in the lore? You don't have to answer that. It's shark. Zexal gave no respect to Cathy. She was a competent duelist, and they just found ways to make her lose. Like she would have gotten into the Heartland tournament if they didn't have her throw the match against that dog duelist to make a little girl feel better about herself. You could have just given her a spot in the top part of the tournament and removed one of those goons that tried to take out Yuma. You'll still have that plot line with 2 goons instead of 3, and Cathy would have a plot-relevant duel against, I don't know, the Butter Spy woman? Anyway, Cat Shark is cool, and it's a funny contrast from the other edgier sharks in Shark the Duelist's deck.
I'm pretty sure it still has just as many teeth.
For honorable mentions, I asked my viewers what some of their favorite weird Xyz monsters were, and here's what they chose that didn't make the list. Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. They just added Sky Thunder to the English translation in case we didn't get the thunder motif with Zeus being in its name. Googly Eyes Drum Dragon. I see why people find this one weird since it is silly, but I never found it to be that weird since it's a clear parody of Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. It's a bit weird that they chose Super Defense Robot to be the archetype that parodies the Photon archetype, but I see what they were doing. Number 15, Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder. It was pointed out to me that there's a little man on top of him. What's he doing up there? It's kinda funny since this is supposed to be some sort of creepy giant sentient puppet boss, but it's actually just piloted by a tiny dude. Or is it just a normal sized dude since this is a giant puppet? Number 11, Big Eye, because it looks like an ice cream cone. Number 50, Black Ship of Corn. It was used by a corn pirate in the manga. Not a pirate themed around corn or a pirate who steals corn, a pirate made of sentient corn who exploded into popcorn when he was defeated. Number 71, Rabarian Shark, because it's a dragon rather than a shark, or I guess fish or sea serpent. I like that logic, and that's how I would rant about it. And number 41, Baguska the Terribly Tired Tapir, and Totally Awesome. The main reason these two are honorable mentions is because they were both on my censored Yu-Gi-Oh card lists as their own entries, so I did not want to repeat what I said there. If they weren't on those lists, then they easily would have been entries on this one, since these are some infamous changes. They both have great effects, but either their artwork or names were altered in international releases. Baguska was drinking and passed out in the Japanese version, so the editor had a fun time making it look like he was planning to pass out because it's bedtime, with pillows and all.
He's crying because he ran out of beer. Oh, I love him. I love him even more. I didn't know I loved him, but now I love him so much. That's a bold censorship choice. I would have gone with soda or something like that. Okay, you know how I said he was crying? I realized that I was looking at it wrong this whole time. I thought his mouth was his eye. But no, he's drooling because he's so tuckered out.
Totally Awesome may not have any artwork alterations, but it is infamous for its pun name in English. I do love puns, and I think it's kinda funny that the translation team just said screw it and did not know how to translate its Japanese name of Mochi Frog or Mochi Toad, even though they could have literally just called it Mochi Toad in English with no issues. Instead, they threw out its original idea and just asked, hey, does anyone have a good toad pun? It's that color because it's made of mochi. I'm pretty sure international audiences could have figured out what mochi is.
I love mochi. In my freezer right now, I have green tea mochi and I also have vanilla mochi, but I'm almost done with the green tea mochi and I'm sad about that. And the vanilla mochi is like way shoved into my freezer.
I just have to say, I think it's funny. They're mochi frogs, right? The one guy's like super digging it, but the guy on top is shocked as he realizes what that means. He's like, they're about to eat us, bro. We need to escape.
I wanted the craziest Xyz monster we could find for the top of this list. Something like that synchro monster with no level, and I think we have a good parallel to it. Number 1, Imaginary Chaos number 1000, Numeronius Numeronia. Oh boy, where do we start with this one?
What is this?
Oh, that's a good question.
The most normal thing about this monster was how it was used in the anime, mostly because whenever crazy one-time things happen, I have a good suspension of disbelief there. Main villain Don Thousand used it as his main boss monster, and with the pace of anime duels, you expect high-level, high-attack monsters to come out. I'm fine when things are seemingly unfair in the anime. Numeronia got summoned with a special condition when Chaos number 1000 Numeronius was destroyed, allowing you to summon its evolution, Imaginary Chaos number 1000 Numeronius Numeronia, and it has 100,000 attack and defense because it's a final boss. It had a bunch of effects where it can't be destroyed by card effects, can't attack, and must be targeted by attacks by all of your opponent's monsters or else they lose the duel. So when this card was finally printed in 2021, Konami had quite the task of making it into a TCG card that worked. It had the same idea as the anime, just not making it as apparent at first glance that this card makes you win the game. The main way to summon it is still with number 1000 getting destroyed, but I like that they humor you by saying you can summon it the classic way by overlaying. All you need is 5 level 13 monsters, and the maximum default level of a monster is 12 in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I guess all you need to do is summon, I don't know, 5 motorhome transports and activate their effects until they're all at level 13. They made its attack and defense double question mark instead of 100,000 on default, but it gains 100,000 attack and defense during your opponent's turn only, so it basically has its anime stat line. Since it couldn't attack in the anime, having a question mark stat line on default seems like a good substitute for that. They did not give it destruction immunity like in the anime though, so does that mean Regeki would work? I feel like that might be a game changer. Either way, if you can't destroy it with an effect, it works just like in the anime. During your opponent's turn, it forces your opponent to attack the monster, so they basically lose against its 100,000 attack points. It makes sure they can't get around it by just not attacking. You'll need roughly 92,000 attack points on a monster to survive a turn. And if you try to be cheeky against it and just don't summon any monsters, the card declares that its owner wins the game if Numeronia doesn't battle during the opponent's turn. So good luck finding a monster that can stand up to that 100,000 attack power. Wait, I play Amazons. Is Amazon a swordswoman my way out against this card? Enjoy your 98,500 points of damage, sir! Wait, it has an effect where you can remove a material to negate an attack. Never mind. Beyond all these hoops you have to jump through to survive against this Xyz monster, what about its name? Imaginary Chaos number 1000 Numeronius Numeronia is not easy to say.
Like Numeronius, Numerio, Numerical, the Pneumonicus Pneumana? Like, oh my god. I never thought I'd say this, but I kind of miss the days when they just name Yu-Gi-Oh cards after random people that work for them. Why can't this card just be called Greg? Just Greg, the 12-star monster.
Rank 13.
13 stars. Oh man. Better call him Greg +1. But for having a name like Numerius Numeronia, he doesn't have that many things going on about him. You think he'd have like 10,000 eyes and like 1,000 squiggles. But now he's just got like, I can count those wings on like my hands, 6. There's 6 of them.
It looks like something from Evangelion.
But you know what's even longer? Its Japanese name. The English name abbreviates it for my feeble human mind, but the real name translates to Chaos Imaginary Numbers 1000 Hollow Light Spirit of Delusion Numeronius Numeronia.
What am I looking at?
So, by being the boss monster to end all boss monsters and having a name that drives us to madness, Imaginary Chaos number 1000 Numeronius Numeronia tops this list of weird Xyz monsters. Now, what did you think? Were all these Xyz monsters as weird as we made them out to be, or are there weirder ones that we left face down? What are some of your favorite Xyz monsters in general, whether we discussed them or not? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.